Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another in the series of vegans across the world. Today we have Ailya. Did I say that right? You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
told me, so there goes my attention span. And she is coming to us from, and you're gonna have to tell me if I say this right,
Yes.
Lahore, Pakistan. So thank you so much for being here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen with you. And when I do this, I do go off our screen. So if you could tell me if it comes up for you, if you see it, I'm going to show where you're at in the world and let everybody know some interesting facts about the area. So here we go. Do you see that?
Yeah. Yes, I can see
Okay.
that.
So anyway, there's your red dot in the world. I'm going to get right in there. We'll zoom in to where you're at. You're very close to India. As a matter of fact, I did an interview with somebody in Himachal Pradesh, India, right next to you.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
yeah. So there's your place in the world. So some facts about the area. Pakistan is officially the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. It is a country in South Asia, born in 1947. Two Pakistanis have won the Nobel Peace Prize. The late Abdus Salam in 1979 and Malala, I don't know how to say her last name, Yousafzai,
Yusuf Zai, yeah. Yeah.
Yousafzai in
Yeah.
2014. She won the Nobel Peace Prize for women's education activism. She was only 17, making her the youngest recipient ever. Another fact about that is she was actually shot in the head for her activism by a gunman from the Taliban in 2012, but she survived later on, getting the Nobel Peace Prize. They have the world's largest continuous irrigation system. Roughly 50 to 70% of soccer balls are made in the city of Salcott. Is that how you say it?
Sialkot, yeah.
Yeah. Um, the world's first PC virus was created by two Pakistani brothers, discovered in 1986, targeting IBM platforms. The late Benazir Bhutto was the first woman to head a democratic government in a Muslim majority country. The world's largest ambulance network is there, which is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. Sugarcane juice is the national drink. It's known as Roe. Is that true?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things I didn't know.
Well, you know what? This is one of my favorite parts, actually, is when I tell the people I'm interviewing interesting facts that they didn't even know. You know?
Yeah, I didn't know about the virus. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking this up, there were so many facts I really had to pick and choose, and sometimes I like to pick the quirky ones. Um, let's see. I'm probably gonna say some. If I say any names or words wrong, please don't hesitate to correct me. Chigori Mountain, is that it? Chigori Mountain. It's
I
known as
don't.
K2. Yeah, it's
Okay,
known
okay.
around the world as K2. It's the highest mountain peak in Pakistan. It's the second highest in the world. That's why it's known as K2. As a matter of fact, when I was looking on there, you have quite a lot of mountains in Pakistan that are on the tallest in the world list. So,
Yeah.
um, they have a rare species of blind dolphin found in the water of Indus River. It's the second most endangered freshwater dolphin in the world. Have you ever seen one?
Yeah. I've not seen one, but I know there's a lot happening for conservation of the dolphins towards the south part
Okay.
of the country.
Yeah, something I read, and I'm doing this from memory because I didn't write it down, but since it's the second most endangered freshwater dolphin, I believe the first most endangered is pretty much considered extinct. But I think there's some that still are alive, but they're considered extinct, unfortunately. They have the only fertile desert in the world, so that's pretty interesting. It's called the Thera Parker Desert. Okay.
Parker Desert. Yeah,
And you also have the world's largest man-made forest. It's called the Changamanga, and
yeah.
it was planted in 1866. And you are the fifth most populous country with a population of uh, 216 million, 0.6 million people as of 2019 census. Sorry, I flubbed up a little bit there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to get back to us. And I would like to get to know you a little bit better. Everybody would. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? For example, what do you do and what kind of activism might you be involved in?
All right, so I do quite a handful of things. A little about myself would be I graduated as an architect back in 2015. Went to an art school, and with that, I did theater and I did different kinds of things. And
You
slowly,
did
I moved.
acting or you did
Yes, I did production and acting, and I did it for 5 years, like constantly. And then later on, as when I graduated, I did a bit of architecture, but I continued my volunteer activism. I worked with a few human rights groups who were grassroots level activists, even a few gender minority groups, and I was a rescuer since quite some time, but I did it on my own. I wasn't associated with any group for rescuing. I just find stray animals injured, pick them up, take them to the vet, rehome them, and somehow that led me towards becoming a vegan activist. And I found um, that there's a whole space that's not being worked in Pakistan, and that's the speciest, the anti-speciest movement. And I thought that this is maybe what I should work on, maybe make more awareness based on that. It just that's how I started, and started with peer-to-peer activism, where I reach out to people, people reach out to me, we ask each other questions, and something or the other, give each other information, and I'm trying to grow that vegan circle further.
that's
Yeah,
great. That's
that's
wonderful.
the story.
So how long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan since early 2020. When I completely shifted. Before that, I was constantly transitioning towards it. But given that I do live in Pakistan, which is predominantly Muslim, and there is hardly any awareness around vegan diet or plant-based diet, so it did take me some time to actually go completely vegan, but I was like almost there for quite some time. Yeah.
The seed had been planted. So what was it that triggered you, that flipped that switch for you? What made you go vegan?
Okay, so this is very interesting. Back in 2015, one of my friends, he called me up and he's like, "There's this doctor. She's speaking. I'm not going to name her right now. So she's speaking on animal rights in Islam, and I think because you rescue animals, you should definitely go listen to her." And I was like, okay. It was a small space. 15 to I think 12 to 15 people were there, and she started talking about how we should be merciful towards animals and all of these things. And then she started pointing out that how humans are the only species that drink milk after they wean off
After
their
we
mom.
wean. Yeah.
Yeah. So but all of those things. And then she said this one thing, because I was going through a lot of depression those days. I was going through a lot of family issues and everything. And she said, if you eat depression, you will have depression and you will become depression. And then she connected that to the chickens and the cows, what they go through. At that minute, I did laugh it out. Like, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. That's our first, I think, most people, that's
Yeah.
how they react. And I left that place and I told my friend, I'm like, I'm going to have a beef burger today because I went to a very dumb lecture. And 2 months in, I was thinking, and I just changed my diet. I
So
did
the
message,
seed was planted.
yeah, the seed was planted, and I did message her earlier this year, and I thanked her. I'm like, you did something back then that brought me all the way here.
But you know what? That's a really great testimony right there that you just told us, because oftentimes as activists, when we have one-on-one conversations with somebody about this and we get very negative feedback from the person, or just they have this response of like they don't care, or they become callous or whatever, we don't know that later on that stuck with them, you know?
Yeah,
And we have to keep that in the back of our minds instead of getting discouraged as activists, because it can, I'm sure you know, be very discouraging at times when we get those kind of reactions. And it can make us not want to go out and do our activism sometimes, and kind of
yeah.
go within ourselves. But just remember that it's usually the people that protest the most that are thinking about it, you know?
I totally agree. And I try to keep that as a main part of my activism, because I feel that everyone has a processing time and everyone has an unlearning time. So we need to be empathetic enough to give that to people, given that we have been conditioned for so many years to eat meat and disconnect from that reality. And I've seen that happen when one of my friends, who would make fun of me, a lot fun of me. And for 2 years, he would always grill me every time I'd go over. He would be like, you know what? You don't eat meat. You're not going to survive. You're not going to live. And then I think last month he came over and he's like, you know what they're doing to the fish in the sea, it's very bad. I'm like, yes, you're getting there. So he's quit, like he said, he's eliminated um, like beef out of his what do you call it, sorry, his
Diet.
daily diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's only like, he does it now like once a month. And I'm like, yeah, that's encouraging. I'm not gonna say just, I know there will become a time when I can push him to just totally quit. So
There'll come a time you'll say, "But if you're only eating it once a month, that means you can go without it altogether."
exactly.
But yeah, it's funny. It's the people who protest so much that yeah, it does stick with. I remember doing outreach on the street one day, had a really great conversation with a couple of people, and they left cordially and everything like that. I was left with, that was nice, but you're not really like convinced that it's going to change them. Um, but I had a really heated argument with another gentleman that even though he said he agreed with all my points, but he refused to go vegan. He was just like being really like, I'm just going to stick to my guns. I knew that that was the one person that was going to go away with the most from that. So, because I knew that that conversation was going to stick with him. So, but
And it
anyway,
does.
yeah. So where are you originally from? Are you originally from Pakistan?
Yes, I am originally from Pakistan, and I belong, like, from family background. I belong to a village called Mardan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is the northwest frontier near the Afghan border. So it's near Peshawar and all these areas. It was heavily under the Taliban influence when even Swat and all these other areas were. So that's where my roots are based off of. My grandparents still live there. My mother still lives there.
So
And
let me look at I'm going to look real quick at my map again. So you said northwest. So that's far from where you are now, right? Would you say it was
yeah,
close to Afghanistan?
yeah, it's Mardan. It's called Mardan, Mardan.
Okay. I don't see it, but did you say Peshawar?
Yeah, you can look at Peshawar. It's
Peshawar.
Pech.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's
no, sorry.
that's west of
Pesh.
Islamabad.
Sorry, Pesh. Sorry, I have like
Yeah,
spelling
I see
mistakes.
it on the map. Wanted to reference there, but so yeah, kind of far from where you are now. Um, So yeah, very close to Afghanistan. So you had the Taliban there, and wow, were you there? I mean, how long did you live there um, when the
So I've
Taliban had?
kept visiting on and off, but I was there during 2007 and 8, when the Taliban was influencing a lot of parts of Pakistan,
Yeah.
and when the even around the time when the Malala incident happened, when she was shot. So that we remember what was happening in our house that day. We remember and a lot of there had been waves. We had bombs going off right across the road from our house in Peshawar at one point, waking up to all the windows broken. So it was under a lot of influence of the Taliban. But I've kept moving around mostly. I moved. I moved. I lived in Islamabad. I've lived in Karachi. I've lived in Peshawar, and then in 2010 I did move to Lahore, and before that, in when I was 6, we moved to Sharjah, UAE, and been traveling a lot since I was a kid. But I
Oh,
did,
so that's the United Arab Emirates, right?
yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow, you moved around a lot, and you were very young. That's a lot to go through at a young age. You seem very well adjusted for all that. And I'm not talking about just the moving around, but the situations you were living in. That's I can't even imagine. We take for granted in a lot of places the comforts that we grow up in. You know, so more power to you. So, what would you say is
thanks.
the what's the culture and the food like there where you are now? And was there any shock from like the UAE to where you are now? Was going back and forth, anything like that?
Yeah, I think I live in a cultural shock till this day because
I guess so.
I don't know what culture I associate with, but the good thing about that is that I can make bonds with a lot of people from different cultures very easily because I've been always exposed to different kinds of people. But yeah, in my hometown we have very salty food. They don't use much spices. It's very basic, three, four spices. It's like salt, pepper, ginger, garlic, green chilies. That's it. That's all the base that goes into the food. And meat
Well, I
is
think
a
that I
staple
read,
diet.
and I'm sorry, I think that I read, and I didn't write it down, that you guys have one of the largest salt mines or something like that as
Yes,
well.
yeah. It's
So
yeah, we do. So
maybe
it's
that
the
has
one
an
of
influence on it. I don't know.
maybe, but because if you look at the Pashtun culture, they were actually moving in groups constantly, so a bit of nomadic tribes eventually settling down. So we do see a lot of meat and rice and those things like potatoes coming into the diet. Um, in my
And the
house, we did
salt
have,
was probably preserving the meat as well when they were
yes, it
traveling.
was.
So
It was. So it's always been that way. And in Punjab, where I'm living right now in Lahore, you see a lot of vegetables, which is good because you see them as an indigenous staple. And you have spinach and all of these, and they're coming in naturally. So it's not like, so that's what the local diet was here. And I'm kind of adapting into this Lahore food, indigenous food, I would say. Yeah.
and would you say some of that influence maybe is coming over the border from India as well?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So within the UAE, what was the difference between where you are now and there? Is there a huge difference or no?
Oh yes, of course. There's a huge difference
Is there?
in terms of, yeah, because when I was growing up in the UAE, I had a lot of different cultures and foods around me. So like one of my neighbors was French, one of my neighbors was African, one of them was Indian, one of them was Filipino, and because I was always that kid who was very adventurous, and I would make friends very easily, I would eat at everyone's home. Like I was always welcome, and I would go and eat at people's homes.
Yeah.
And like I was adopted by the community, I think. So,
That's wonderful. I mean, it shaped who you are, a confident woman, and you can find your way around the world. I'm a little bit jealous of your traveling. I'm the type of person that's always wanted to travel myself, and I've always had a good time. I like to pick places. I try to pick places that are a little off the beaten path. Um, and I tend to go. Well, I do. I go by myself, and I find that I make friends that way. And I love all kinds of cultures. That's another reason I do this series. So get to know people from all over the world. I I get to kind of travel vicariously through you.
it's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah,
So, so in
especially
terms
since
of, sorry,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
sorry,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
No.
I think it's because we had a delay there for a second that
Yeah,
we kind of
yeah.
interrupted each other. But yeah, it's just like, especially with the pandemic and stuff like that nowadays, it's like I finally get a vacation this next month. But it's been 2 years. And so, yeah, this has helped me a little bit, get to know other people around the world. So,
That's great.
are any of your family or friends vegan?
Yeah, none of my family's vegan, but a lot of
You're
my
not
friends
alone.
are. Yeah, a lot of my friends are, at least they're changing their diets. But I've met some great vegan community members who've become friends now, and we have a small group here in Pakistan. It's although it's a digital group, but you feel at home. You have a safe space to connect with everyone, and so there's this one friend. She runs Vegans of Pakistan page, and she runs it on Insta. I'll definitely send you a link to that. And she's been vegan for I think over 20 years, if I'm not wrong, and one of the oldest,
That's
I think.
wonderful.
Yeah, I think one of the oldest, and she does a brilliant job with bringing information to one page, where to find what's on sale, whatever's vegan in Pakistan, and it really it helps.
And she's from Pakistan. She's been there 20 years as a vegan?
No, she's been. I think she's American, but she's been living here for quite some time. But yeah,
Okay, okay. I was gonna say that'd be interesting to hear more of her story as well. So,
yes,
yeah, you're not really alone as far as like the family part. A lot of us, everybody that I talk to tends to struggle with the family. For some reason, it's easier for us to talk to strangers about it. Um, But as far as the friends go, you also find that you kind of, when you become vegan, build a new community, you know.
yeah,
So that, I mean, and that's a natural thing, just as you're growing older anyway. People move here or there, have families, and they have children, and they go off to different jobs, and so you build new families. So it's just, you know, this just happens to be a vegan one, and probably when you become an activist as well, it becomes even stronger. So, and
yeah.
you're still young. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 32. Yeah,
You're
32.
32. I thought you were
Yeah.
younger than that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still, I'm 52. So,
Oh, oh,
yeah, and I'm just like building I went vegan 15 years ago, and I'm still building new friends, and I've moved around a little bit. So, but yeah,
and
I
you
mean,
look
it's a natural.
younger.
I'm
You look
sorry.
younger. You look younger. You look like you're 30.
It's
Yeah.
all lighting. It's just good lighting. You don't want to see me out in the daylight. It's all the preservatives I put in my body. No, so now that you've been vegan, you become yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the ground running, really, because you're an activist and you didn't become vegan very long ago, really. I mean, would you say what during the pandemic?
Yes, during the pandemic, before like
Yeah.
January, right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, I have met quite a few that have hit the ground running and have become activists, and I admire that because it took me a long time. It might have something to do with the isolation that I was in, and that 15 years ago, veganism wasn't what it is now. But it took me quite a while. Um, so I really admire people that just like as soon as they became vegan, they went out there and started like speaking up for the animals. That's wonderful. So, what do your family and friends think about that aren't vegan? What do they think about your veganism?
Okay, it's quite different. Some of the people, they're very supportive. Like my boss, he's very supportive. I'll be very open about it. He's not vegan, but he always gives me an off if I need to speak or go to a protest. So he'll always be okay with that. He gets me vegan food gifts, which is very
That's
nice of him.
wonderful. That's
Yeah,
wonderful that he supports
I
you
think
like
one
that.
of the only people who's never said anything mean to me about becoming a vegan. And some of my friends, they've become vegan. They've asked, like, not become vegan, but they're transitioning towards veganism. And some of them call me a virus or an extremist. Or I was actually thinking of owning up to it and calling myself the vegan virus.
So they're like, "Oh, you're getting at us. You're getting at us. We're
Yeah,
becoming vegan
yeah.
now." That's funny. What do they think about your activism? I mean, obviously, your boss, he's very supportive. What do your family and friends think about your activism?
My family and friends, they're also very supportive of my activism. At least, even though most of them will make fun of me, but I know that when I do have a protest and when I do ask them to share something, they do it, and they do go out of the way. They do give me a shout out on social media. So far, and I'm really grateful that I have those. I've built those connections that they've not ghosted me for being vegan. At least
Yeah, I've had a few of those over the years.
those are also there, but I think they're not our friends then, right? So
Yeah, and it's funny because it tends to be the people that you didn't expect that stick around, and the people
yes.
that you thought would stick around that drop away from you. And it's very strange, but that it is what it is, and you just move on. So would you say it's easy or hard to be vegan where you live?
So I think it's kind of both, because it's easy if you know you're doing it for a purpose that is bigger than your existence, which is that you're saving lives and you're doing it to save the animals. And it's difficult if you want to do what the vegans are doing in the West. Like, if you want to eat tofu every day, and if you want to eat all the things that are not easily available to us.
You
But
mean like Beyond Burgers? That's what we have in the West. Yeah.
we don't even have a vegan burger joint here in Pakistan right now. So it's the first time that we're hearing that maybe Beyond Meat might start partnering up with some restaurant, but it's a far-fetched idea. Veganism is still looked at as an elitist food staple, looked at as something that you can't afford. And one thing that I noticed, like, maybe I had the same idea about veganism myself when before I went vegan, but I realized that there's a lot of indigenous foods that I think I was not aware of, and those vegan and vegetarian options had been there in this area for hundreds of years, and because of so much mass marketing and mass consumerism that's being advertised, like, sorry, so the fast food that's being advertised to us, or the mainstream foods that being advertised to us, I always kind of missed that there was so much that was not known to people. And even myself, like, I didn't know there were so many kinds of different vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that from a lot of people, and it's funny because a lot of people are trying to say nowadays that veganism is colonialism. It's it's coming from the West. It's not. Actually, a lot of people are finding that their indigenous foods were based in plants, you know?
Yeah.
And what really is colonization is the meat industry.
I totally agree with you when you said about, a lot of indigenous foods that we're missing out on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually the opposite. I don't think veganism is colonization. I think it's the meat industry is what
I
it
totally
be,
agree.
yeah. So, not just veganism, that's mainly about food as we know, but animal rights. How do people view animal rights?
In Pakistan,
Yeah.
so we're very far from the idea of empathy towards animals. We have to keep in mind that Pakistan is a region that is very patriarchal, and it's very much dominated by, the idea of the superior man. And just that, one male, the idea of male supremacy, and you add a layer to that where people have misquoted or taken something out of the context, were calling themselves as a superior one. Human is superior, right? And we see that similar lines in the biblical theory. We see that in Islamic ideology. We see that in different forms where human is known to be superior. So getting that out of people and making them understand that, animals are sentient and you cannot abuse them just because, they can't speak, is quite a task. And although when there are people who don't understand animal rights or don't want to participate in that, but there are some people who are working really hard for the animals in the country as well. So, but of course that uh, there are a lot of laws that have been recently filed, but there is no implementation of law. So where does one go to report an abuse of an animal, and how does that investigation take place? It doesn't. It always ends up being, dismissed or something or the other, unless there is some very proper proof. And no one abuses animals in the dark, or like on camera live. Like very few people who are really sadistic do that, but most of the things don't. I think we're far off from understanding animal rights as a
Yeah.
nation.
I have to say though that I happen to know areas in the United States that are the same. It's like they might have the laws, but nobody's implementing or nobody's enforcing them.
Yeah,
You know, and unfortunately, I think that's a lot of places. But
that
while we were talking about Islamic influence and the patriarchy and all that stuff, I was surprised to find out like some of the facts that there seems to be a lot of female influence for an Islamic nation. I believe you're the second largest Islamic nation in the world. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up again. But there's still been a lot of female influence there as far as politicians and your Nobel Peace Prize laureates. And um, do you think that do, do you have vegans in Islam? I mean, do you have groups like that? I'm just curious.
well, I think that Islam, like that, because I'm not a scholar, so I can't comment much as a Muslim scholar. But as far as my understanding is that Islam is a religion of peace, and
Yeah.
it does
Are
all
you Muslim
religions.
yourself?
Yes, I am Muslim, and I do believe that most religions, or almost all religions, do preach peace and empathy at the end of the day. And that element somehow, I think, is lost in so many ways. And I think just to reclaim that, the right essence, because I don't think that any religion speaks about torturing animals just for fun, or um,
But,
oh,
well,
making leather out of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny, and the reason I'm asking this is because you hear the arguments of like in my religion, and it's not just Islam. You'll hear Christians say that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll hear people go, "Well, I'm Muslim, and it says in my religion we got to do this for this celebration or whatever." But you also hear Christians do that. So, but then I know of Muslim vegans, so it's like, and then when you tell these people that, they're shocked. They're like, "What?
Yes.
Muslim vegan?" You know, and and they seem a bit more shocked. I have to say, they do seem a bit more shocked than Christian vegans or Christian non-vegans when you say there's Christian vegans. And so that's why I kind of wanted to know your take on that. So that's interesting. Yeah, there are even groups, Muslim vegans.
Yeah.
So
And I think that veganism is it's talking about empathy, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, I don't see
yeah,
it conflicting at any part.
yeah. There's even people that like they want to argue Bible verses or the Quran, and there's vegans that are like come back at them and say, "Listen, it doesn't
Yeah.
say that. It doesn't say that in here. It doesn't say we have to kill animals." So yeah, I was really interested to hear your take on that. So, what would you say is your favorite form of activism? It sounds like you've done a few, even though you're new to the scene. Well, what's your favorite form of activism?
Yeah, I've been an animal activist for quite some time because I did work in rescuing animals and for like quite some time. I think I was rescuing animals since I was a kid.
Okay.
I think it wasn't like something, but calling myself an activist, an animal rights activist, yes, that's pretty recent. But I think it's I've always been picking up animals from the road, or getting them rehomed somehow. But I've done the on ground work, and I've done different kinds of fundraising for some cases. I've done but this time, when it comes to specifically veganism, I'm really looking forward to research and strategic planning for the region, because I believe that if we were to reach the 2050 vegan goal, we need to be very strategically aligned. And for that reason, I'm focusing now more on indigenous foods. I am Me and a few friends, we did this thing recently, like someone from someone on Instagram posted that veganism is expensive and not everyone can afford it. So we all started this thing that we started sharing foods that were accessible in Pakistan, and you could make it in like maybe less than $1 or something like that. Just to break that thing that yes, we can tell people that it's not expensive. So
Yeah.
I really think that raising awareness and strategic planning would be something that I would want to do in the future.
See, I think that's fabulous, and again, another reason I would do this to show people that you can be vegan no matter where you are. Is when they say veganism is expensive. I think that's great when people who maybe live in those, um, more far off areas or more remote areas that aren't influenced as much or aren't in the West come up and say, "Hey, listen, man, I'm vegan. Don't try to don't try to silence my voice. You can't tell me I can't be vegan."
Yeah.
I think that's basically soft bigotry, really, is what it is to think that people in these places can't make these moral choices on their own, or that to think that they didn't have vegetables or these things in their indigenous foods, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that's wonderful when people stand up and they raise their voice and they say, "Listen, I'm from this area and I'm doing it. So don't give me no excuses. Don't use me as an excuse for you not being vegan."
Yeah.
you know? And that's what they're doing. They're using others as an excuse for their own um
Yeah.
laziness, basically. It might be somebody living in Chicago and they're saying, "Well, this person can't be vegan over here. What's that have to do with you?" you know. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's what I say whenever I am debating with someone online or offline. I always ask them. I'm like, let's set a premise first. do you want to argue on the basis of money, food,
Yeah.
availability, religion? Like, don't keep hopping. Let's start somewhere.
You've got them on all fronts there, don't you? You've got them on all fronts. It's like, dude,
Fingers.
you live with the Taliban in your backyard, be vegan. All right, I don't want to hear it. Wow, that's awesome. That's really great. So, if a vegan visits where you live, where do you think they should go? That doesn't have to be a restaurant. It could be a restaurant if you like, but any place that you think they should go if they visit your area.
Okay, so they're in Pakistan. I think we have the best aloo samosas. They're potato
Aloo
samosas.
samosas. Oh, yum.
It's potato samosas, and they serve it with some gravy of chickpea gravy and a sweet plum gravy,
Oh,
sweet plum
yeah.
chutney. So you have to like mix it while it's like warm. I think it's one of my favorite dishes. It's like street food, but it's my favorite. My
I
go-to.
love samosas and I love that plum gravy. I gotta go get some because I love that. It's my favorite. Yes,
Same.
delicious. So, what's your favorite? All right, so that's your favorite local vegan dish they should try, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So,
definitely.
do you have any restaurants or anything like that that do offer vegan? You said that you don't have vegan restaurants per se,
No,
but
we
do
just
you have a lot
have
of
like
vegan options at restaurants?
no, they just started this year, and that's thanks to a few people in the group who started reaching out to different restaurants and saying that, hey, we need a vegan side menu, have some alternatives. So there are a few, like there's one. I don't want to advertise anyone, but yeah, there's one Bamboo Union. That's what it's called, and they do give us alternatives for food. Like, so if they have chicken, they'll replace it with tofu or something like that. There's one pop-up that's plant-based, but they also serve meat. But there's no stand-alone vegan restaurant.
Yeah.
Baskin Robbins just started their first vegan ice cream in Pakistan. Just
And we
like
have that
I
here too.
yeah, we just did two flavors and we all bought so much. We're like, don't let them feel that no one's buying it.
Yeah. I think that's how they do here too. We're like, I gotta go buy it all, so they think that so they'll keep selling it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But that's wonderful. I mean, you said you don't want to advertise them, but you know what? If they're listening
yeah,
to you guys, they should get at least a shout out for that.
I
So you know, progress. One of these days, you'll open up the first vegan restaurant, or somebody you know.
someday.
Do a food truck. That's where everybody starts. So if they come to visit in Pakistan, how can they get involved with the local vegan community then?
All right, so they can look up the Vegan Pakistan page. They can, there are vegan vegetarian groups online on Facebook. And then we usually invite them to our WhatsApp group, and then they can like ask us, and we might be planning a small picnic very soon, so if anyone's in town next month.
Nice. Nice. And any links that you give me or anything that we've talked about that we have links for, we will put below the video for
Definitely,
everybody to check out. So,
I will definitely do that.
and now we got in touch with each other through emails, which I'm not used to
Yeah,
doing, but I'm usually doing it on social media. If you have any social media that you want people to be able to contact you, we'll include that as well. If not, I understand some people aren't on social media, and that's okay.
no,
But
I am on I'm only
why
on
don't
Instagram.
you tell us about this Animals Eight? Is it Animals Asia that you're involved with?
All right, so Animal Alliance Asia is, yeah, it's who do you go? Sorry, it's an activists alliance, and we're focusing on the Asian region. So this year they're going to have a conference for activists where they have a lot of activist speakers, and it's all about creating a platform about sharing knowledge and helping each other learn. And I volunteered with them in around. I started in the mid of 2020. Um, somewhere mid 2020, I joined them as a volunteer, as a representative for Pakistan. It's a wonderful organization. It started by Ellie and Angel. I think you reached out to Ellie to connect with me.
Yeah.
And they're two wonderful people who are working very hard to amplify the vegan activism in Asia, which we feel that um, you know regional voices need to be amplified, and they have a conference coming up
Yeah, because I
in
mean
November.
you have issues specific to your area, so that makes sense,
Yeah,
you know.
and I'm very grateful to them because they did help me amplify my voice and activism. So I've learned a lot from Ellie and Angel, being part of their team as a volunteer, and
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
hoping to grow with them.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that video that you guys did on YouTube of your you had a little conference or an interview with somebody UK Veg Fest or something was very good. I'll
Yes,
include that as well. I'll include a link to that if people are interested in more in what you guys are doing with that. So I
I
thought
will.
it was a great interview. So
Thank you.
thank you for all you're doing over there. You know what? Thank you so much for what you're doing for the animals, all of you. I support you wholeheartedly. I do have one last question that's a surprise question.
Okay.
Do you like pizza?
I love pizza.
Okay. What do you think about pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
No.
Oh, no. You guys are ruining me. I'm team pineapple all the way. That's okay. That's all right. I'm gonna have to go back and keep score. That's okay. You know what? It's been fantastic talking to you. I've had a blast. If you could do me a favor, I know I told you that when we're done, I usually just do this on my own, but if you could wait backstage for a minute, I would like to ask you a question when I'm done. But I'm just going to wrap this up with the audience and say my goodbyes. Is there any last things that you would like to talk about before we go?
Just one thing, I say it on every platform that I speak at. Please join forces with all the vegans all across the world and learn from each other, because this is the time to be united. We can't have a vegan world if we're not united. That's what I want
That's
to
a
say.
wonderful message. Thank you so much. All right. So I'm just gonna kick you from the stage, but stay back there and I will be with you in just a minute, okay? Thank you so much. All right, another great guest, guys. And you know what? Pakistan wasn't really on my radar just yet, but it came up. I saw her and I was so interested. And wow, am I so happy that I met her. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I found it incredibly interesting and informative. So check out all the links below. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below the videos. Share these to people who don't think you can be vegan wherever you are. And I will talk to you soon. If you want to know who I'm having next week, you'll just have to show up. Love you.